Hey, so I've been on a bit of an arrow kick, and I figured I'd zone in on a specific aspect in the show. So, Tommy Merlyn. He's an interesting fella to fixate on considering he is specifically relevant to Season 1, and even after dying, he still has a lingering presence in the following seasons as a ghost of someone who Oliver lost. I think it's somewhat interesting to consider within the greater scheme of Green Arrow as a whole. So let's consider a couple things. The Arrow show reinvented a lot of things. Some things, especially in the earlier seasons, I can't help but think are interesting additions. Oliver having a present mother and sister, stories like with the nightclub, and Tommy. Now, Merlyn's a tricky character to get a handle on before this show. In a lot of ways, he pretty much places a dark parallel to Oliver Queen, which isn't a bad thing. It's also worth noting a lot of superheroes have dark parallels. A Flash to a fellow speedster like Reverse Flash. Green Lantern to a fellow lantern holder like Sinestro. Superman to an evil Kryptonian like Zod. I mean, just look at a lot of the MCU movies. It's also worth noting that somehow, Merlyn debuted in a Black Lightning comic. So anyway, the show was given a lot to work with and had a lot of ideas. We are first introduced to Tommy Merlyn, who works as a character to show what Oliver was like before getting stranded on that island. He happens to be dating his ex Laurel. His father is the more malicious-seeming Malcolm Merlyn, who ends up taking up the mantle of Dark Archer. There's a lot of layers to this. I'm seeing a lot of a Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn type dynamic. Could also be attributed to Lex Luthor and Lionel Luthor from Smallville, where there's an older, sinister force, and naturally tropes pertail. The younger son takes up the mantle, being a villain of their own. Couple that with traditionally, Black Canary is Oliver's love interest. And it seems with all that, what would eventually happen, Tommy would be jealous when Oliver steals his girl, which that happens. Oliver would end up killing his father. Then in a swell of anger and resentment, Tommy Merlyn would take up the mantle of Black Archer, being the new Merlyn nemesis for Oliver Queen. Except that doesn't happen at all. Instead, he dies a hero, sacrificing himself for Laurel, in fact motivating Oliver Queen to be a better hero who doesn't kill people. This is an interesting subversion that plays on a lot of things. Earlier on, the plan was for Tommy to eventually take up the mantle of Dark Archer, but overall this works out differently, in a way that's more subdued, and in some sense more ominous for Oliver Queen.
Tommy? It should have been me.
So for a start, earlier on, it's worth noting that Tommy ends up learning that Oliver is indeed the Arrow.
Why should I trust you? Because you always have.
Oliver.
In the greater scheme of things, this is the third person to find out that Oliver's the Arrow, right after Diggle and Felicity. And unlike Diggle and Felicity, who more quickly get over their qualms of Oliver being a murderer, and get more easily integrated into Team Arrow, Tommy has a lot more hesitation. He still helps Oliver with nightclub and such, even covering for him, but he doesn't get as integrated as well and even ends up pushing away from Oliver. It's also worth noting right before this, he literally saw Malcolm fight two guys and even kill them. You'd almost think he's kind of a hypocrite, being harsher on Ollie than his father. But his dad did say it was self-defense. He was literally dying, and at the time Oliver's crimes seemed much more egregious. It's kind of interesting in the moments after Oliver hooked up with Laurel to the I'm Waking Up song. He starts going down a more villainous path, getting aggressive with Ollie, almost fighting him. He even jokes about tearing down the glades with his father.
Maybe after your jihad, we can grab some steaks.
Then later he learns about the pains his father went through, listening to his wife's dying message on repeat, having this vengeance for the glades, eventually revealing his master plan.
So you killed them all?
Yes! They deserve to die! All of them! The way she died!
Now, Tommy had major qualms with Oliver about killing, and it would be quite hypocritical to suddenly go along with his father with such vengeance, and that's correct. This is a step too far, and he ends up rejecting Malcolm, later getting that fate where he saves Laurel and dies in Oliver's arms, no longer with hate, but for love for his brother. Now, this is already a pretty compelling story for Season 1, but I argue it gets more interesting as it goes on. Part of it is that the Tommy actor never returns as a regular for the show, but the way he does reappear is interesting and unique, almost like it is chipping away at Oliver's perception of his friend. So for a start, there's his quick appearance in Season 2. Already Oliver's going down a more heroic path, trying not to kill. Bro is hallucinating a little bit, got some rat poison or something. They're literally doing this Christmas Carol thing that represent different stages in his life. It was like around Christmas, they were trying something. You got Shadow, who Oliver failed. Slade, who's coming back with vengeance. Both character fates that are hinted right before they are revealed in the show. And then Tommy, who ends up being the third ghost, being totally redemptive of Oliver and ended up motivating him to fight Cyrus Gold, who becomes Solomon Grundy, and we never seen Arrow again.
You beat the island. You beat my father. So fight, Oliver.
You know, it's a nice way to bring back Tommy. Now in season 3, we get glimpses of him in the flashback. We see that after Oliver's quick call in China, Tommy was the first one to pick up on the signal and investigate, creating tension for Oliver there. In the other season 3 flashback where Oliver was literally in Starling City, we see a bit of Tommy trying to mentor Thea. You know, all sweet there. Next up, jumping way ahead for Crisis on Earth X parallel, we get our first appearance of what I could consider to be a bad Tommy. A literal Nazi Tommy who is Earth X Prometheus somehow. And that jolts Oliver Queen. So you know what, that kind of thing isn't that preferable. I will say with Earth X, a lot of people are bad. Later on, Oliver also saw an evil version of him and Kara. Quentin's evil there too. It's probably the most fun CW crossover there is, just why don't we fight evil doppelgangers from a Nazi universe? So much better than whatever they do in Peacemaker. I will also say this deals with a hypothetical, where like, if you were raised in a universe where the Nazis won, would you be part of that cause? Bit of a nature versus nurture thing. Later on in season 6, while Oliver's dealing with whatever convoluted, covering up his identity shenanigans, a shapeshifter who uses Tommy's face pretends he was the Green Arrow all along. Then later it turns out it was a shapeshifter. That was kind of a dirty move. I imagine if the actor ever returned as a regular, this would have been an ideal area to come in somewhat, but anyway. Then in season 8, the multiverse jumping season, we finally get Tommy Merlyn taking up Malcolm's identity as Dark Archer, and it's in an Elseworld. I think it's kind of fitting, especially for a final season. It would be easy to think he comes in some point in the main timeline. Just, hey, let me slaughter this role. Avenge my father. Laurel. Anon said it's this Elseworld. In this universe, Malcolm got remarried to Moira, and Thea ended up dying young, which made Tommy harbor the hatred. So yeah, an interesting take on the story. I'll admit, it kind of felt like the episode could have been longer. They were just going through the beats some points. I do like, instead of the undertaking happening, he ends up willingly deactivating it as Oliver's friend. You know, right before the Earth gets crisised. Also, when Oliver rebooted the universe somehow. Cheerio, we just get a live Tommy then. That's pretty cool. He gets his happy ending after all. He gets with his Laurel before she dies and converses with Earth 2 Laurel. You know, it's also worth noting, because Tommy died, Olicity happened. Like, this ended up causing Oliver to knock it back with Laurel, getting some nice time with Felicity, and eventually that whole springboard happened. So, interesting chain of events, blame Felicity on Tommy. It would have been easy for Tommy to fall into tropes and become a Dark Archer like his father Malcolm. And maybe some stuff would have been different if the actor committed more. It's kind of thinking, oh, there's Tommy, but, you know, you kind of see some thematic reasoning for what it means. I mean, heck, you can see this Tommy being a better Green Arrow than whatever they actually did. You know, but think of. Anyway, what is your take on Tommy or general other Arrow characters? Feel free to let me know, and cheers.